Shall we get started? Okay. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Kelly Davis toko ingoa. I'm Kelly Davis and I'm an Associate Head of Funding at New Zealand On Air. So we'd love to welcome you today to this webinar and thank you very much for making the time to join us. The topic is something that's very close to my heart, best practice in creative collaboration. And we've been fortunate enough to be joined by Shuchi and Alice, who are going to take you through the workshop today. We've also got Thomas Capel and Nina, whose surname I won't even attempt because it's French and I'm terrible at French, who are doing all of the back end stuff for us today. So if you've got questions, pop them in the chat and they will collate those and we'll get to those near the end of the session. But back to the topic, this, as I understand it, is the first of a series of webinars that we're going to do as part of the Within My Reach program. And it's really about ensuring that as you get started in your careers, you've got a lot of support with training, with professional development and networking with other people. And we're, as New Zealand On Air, very, very happy to play a strong role in supporting you at that stage of your career. So that's the goal. We are following, I think, page 5 of the Sparta and New Zealand Writers Guild best practice guide, which you may or may not have access to. And it's really around today questions that you should be asking early on in a creative collaboration. So it's getting to the fundamentals around the purpose and the why of what you're doing and how you work together. And then troubleshooting those problems, which again is something that I think is so valuable really early on. You are going to have differences of opinion or conflict or hard moments, and it's how you navigate those that will ensure the success of your project and also the success of you as a creative and hold you in really good stead in your career. So I'm very, very excited to introduce Shuchi and Alice and what they're going to talk about today. Would you like to introduce yourselves? Can I hand over to you? Shuchi, do you want to start?
Kia ora koutou. Thank you so much, Kelly. Thanks for this invitation, Thomas. And thanks, New Zealand On Air, for this fabulous initiative. Wonderful to see. I recognize some, names and faces, and some I don't. And I always get excited by the ones I don't as well, because it means more and more people are coming into making work with taxpayer funding, which is really important. I think, not everyone has the ability to max out credit cards and make productions. So this is a wonderful initiative, and thank you all for putting it together. I have been producing and writing in this country for more than 20 years now, so it feels like a very long time. I also teach screenwriting at the University of Auckland and creative producing at the University of Auckland, and I'm also a co-founder and a board member of the Pan-Asian Screen Collective organization that we formed in 2018 to advocate for equitable representation on and behind the screens for Asian people of Asian descent in Aotearoa. Having work made by emerging artists is one of my very fundamental and founding kaupapa. I have mentored more than 60 filmmakers in this country in the last 20 years. Many of them have gone on to have stellar careers, and many have decided that this is not something they want to do and they want to do something else. And both are very valid parts for someone's future. And you don't know that till you actually make a few things. So good luck. And I pass it on to Alice, who I absolutely respect and adore.
Oh, thank you, Shuchi. Love to you too. Mwah. Kia ora koutou. Lovely to see you all here. Thanks to New Zealand On Air again. This is a great initiative, and I feel very lucky to spend my next hour with you imparting some knowledge. I've been in the industry like Shuchi for about 20 years. I'm second generation film industry. My son is third. I am the executive director in my day job of the New Zealand Writers Guild, looking after screenwriters. I also work as a co-chair at Toimai, looking after vocational education for our sector, and a few other things floating around the screen industry. So between Shuchi and I think we've seen it all, potentially done it all, know most people, and are really, really excited to see you and how you progress through your screen career as well. That's it from me. I guess we should open it up now, Shuchi.
Yep.
We're very excited about the session, so I'll pass back to you.
Great. So what Alice and I were thinking yesterday when we met to talk about this was, how do we make this really practical and useful for you? The room is small, so in a way it can be a little more interactive. If it was a very large room, then it would have been harder to involve you at various points in this 1 hour. So the first exercise we want to do is one that we do collectively, and it's not one that we want to tell you very much about. So just be honest and play along with us. And it's a bit of for Alice and I, it's a bit of a role play. For you, it is really tapping into this particular project that you've that you've been shortlisted for by NZOA. So for anything, before we begin, Alice and I have said this in other fora where we've done this, it's a good idea to privately write down what you want from this project. So privately, don't discuss even if you're co-located with your team members. And if you're just right now on your own and your team members did not participate in this webinar, that's fine as well. Just write down key things that you want to get out of this project that you've pitched to NZOA, out of this experience of this project. And I think Alice and I are going to do the same thing. We have a project where Indian actor cannot find work in New Zealand, so he goes to Bollywood to try his luck there. And I think we'll make it a her. Should we, Alice? Should we make her luck? Yeah, why don't we do that? It's her. She wants to go to Bollywood and try her luck there. And Alice is producing and directing, and I'm writing and producing. So this is our role, and we are now both going to write down what we want. And we haven't had a conversation about this, so this is very fresh for us as well.
This is a web series, isn't it, Shuchi?
It's a web series, yes.
Web series, okay.
We're doing a web series funded by NZOA. And all of you will write down, of course, about your projects and what you want.
I'm very excited about this web series about an Indian actress that goes to Bollywood. I'm stoked. Can't wait to share.
Can't wait for you to direct.
And your writing's stellar, Shuchi. Love it. I'm ready.
Me too.
Okay. Are we going to share 1, 2, 3 on the screen? How do you want to do this?
I ended up writing more than three desires, which already shows you that I'm greedier than Alice is. But why don't you read out the ones you've got, and I'll read out the ones I've got after that, and then we can see how we're going to talk about what you want and what I want.
As a director, I have a singular vision. Win an Oscar for directing.
All right. Okay. As a writer, I have a singular vision. I guess my equivalent would be that while this is a comedy, I want to ensure that the show is always about the truth of being POC in Aotearoa and not about exotic India.
Oh. Are we aligned? Do we feel any kind of alignment here in our
I
in our
think
desires?
I think maybe we know other desires and then we talk about alignment, maybe because there might be some other desires that are closer than this.
Okay.
So I have one more, and where I've said that I want to deliver this on time and on budget, because I have ambition to write and produce something much larger, and I need to prove my capacity with this web series. I don't want to be stuck with a web series for the rest of my life. And the third one for me is I want to have fun, but I want to protect my Sundays for my partner.
Okay.
And what else do you want, Alice?
I have such a singular vision, I've realized.
Go ahead.
I would also like to deliver on time. I have no idea about budget, so I hadn't actually considered that. I guess the theme of the story hadn't even crossed my mind. As a director, I was thinking the color, the glamour, the flights, the plane shots for traveling to India. So yeah, I think we probably need to come together a bit on the truth of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how is that going to impact me winning an Oscar if it's a web series?
I think your Oscar is, I have another one that I didn't discuss with you. I want to develop this idea as a feature film. So that's where your Oscar is, Alice, that we need to do this. We need to do this well. And it tests how we work together. And we already like each other. Hopefully we don't blow this. And then I write a feature and you win your Oscar.
Oh, I'm loving this. I'm loving this. I think I'm going to have to work on the on time and on budget bit though, because I don't quite understand those elements as much as the shots.
Yeah. So can I just, since we are producing this together, maybe that's, and I'm just throwing it out there, I know you want to produce, but just hearing what I'm just wondering, would you rather co-produce rather than produce? Do you want to focus on directing or do you want to produce because you think that's the way? Because I also know in our country, a lot of directors are cut out of all financial decisions, and that's why directors want to produce, even though they don't think of themselves as producers. So how can we do something where you are part of all the financial decisions, but maybe you don't have the burden of producing, or do you really want to produce?
I can feel my emotions coming to the surface here. I'm feeling very emotional about the fact that I might have to step away from producing. So I really need to think about this, I think, because, producing was vital in me stepping onto this project. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the feels. They're coming.
No, I don't. Then if producing is important for you, then that's fine. But I think then we need to figure out how we produce together, because I know how I write and I know how you direct and you know how I write. So that part I think is going to work out, but we have not co-produced together. I have produced more and I really want you to feel empowered, but how do we do this so that you get what you need to get out of it? And yet we're very clear about what roles in producing we're going to perform.
I think I'm going to have to go away and get some expert advice on this to help me understand how we're going to work through this, because right now I can't see the pathway forward. I'm just feeling the feels. I'm just feeling emotional. I don't want to be removed from this role. This is my role. This is a project that we birthed together. Letting go of the producing is just, I don't know if I can do that. So I think I need to step away and work this one out.
All right. And should we have a timeline? Like, should we get back together in 3 days, given that, the application's due pretty soon? So
I think 3 days sounds reasonable, but I need to work on the feels.
Yeah. Now, in this moment, a lot of you are thinking inside your head, damn her frickin' feels. You know, we've got an application to write, right? We've got an application to write. And, you know, Jesus, if you're already feeling the feels at a conversation that is so not, you know, difficult, how the hell am I going to work together? But you have to respect these freaking feels.
Yeah.
Because you're going to feel them too at various points. And every time someone has the feels and you panic or you write them off and say, oh, Jesus, I can't work with this person, you will never work with another person. Alice is using, you know, feels in this lovely and annoying way. But that feels could be anything. Substitute that word for, you know, I'm uncertain, I'm not feeling heard, or I don't know, you know, I don't know. And the fourth time someone says, I don't know, I'm like, I want to smack you so that you know, but that's not a solution, right?
Silence is never the answer.
Never. No, I want to smack myself too. You know, I'm like, get over it. But you have to remember people need time. And sometimes early time is better than later time, because if you don't address it early, there will truly be a time when you don't have time for feels, right?
Yeah.
So this is good that it happens at a stage when you can actually, both of you can park a feeling, go and do something about it, go get some help, go have a conversation. The reason I offered Alice the out is because I just heard her say, I'm not sure about this producing thing. But that's what I heard. Maybe that's not what she meant. I thought she meant, I've thought about the shots and everything. I've not really thought about the budget. I don't know about this. And to me, that felt like that she really didn't want to be a producer. She just wanted to be kept in the loop about producing so that she's empowered as a director. So that was my assumption. That's what I heard in this conversation. And that's why I offered that maybe she wants to consider how her producerial role might work out. I'm also in my heart a little bit worried because producing is a big task, and a low budget producing is a bigger task, and you want a co-producer shoulder to shoulder, because I'll be done writing by the time we produce, so I could be fully involved as a producer, and I would like Alice at that time to be fully involved as a director. So who is really going to co-produce with me and go and get the portaloo? Because that's what you got to do on a web series, right? Like the producer's handling all kinds of things that on bigger budgets you don't have to do. So maybe my own kind of, you know, the quick way in which I offered Alison out is also born out of my own fear that I might not truly have a producing partner in the way that I will need one on the day. And these are very important feelings and fears that we have getting into a relationship, even with people we love deeply, that we care about, that we like a lot. And what do we do about these anxieties, concerns, questions, is we don't address them. And in not addressing them, we kind of set our friendship to fail or our project to fail, or even worse, both to fail. So this is, you know, a good thing to go through with each other and your whole team in one room. Each person writes what they want. You know, what if Alice had said that she really can only work on weekends because she has childcare duties and other duties that'll take over some of her week evenings? And I have just put down on paper that I want to preserve my Sundays. That would be another conversation we had to have, right? How are we going to honor what she wants and honor what I want? And if it's an impasse, then it might be between these months, we will honor what you want. And then between these months, I will have to, you know, you'll have to work the weekend and I will protect the Sunday. So again, you know, these kinds of conversations are really important before you put in an application. Don't kick the can down the road and think we'll talk about this if we get funded. It's already too late by that point to have some of these fundamental conversations, which is not to say new things won't emerge, but at least you start, you know, together. Over to you, Alice.
Thank you. Thanks, Shuchi. So we're going to now move into the blueprint for having those hard conversations. Shuchi and I, our role play just then was an example of something that her and I have both seen in our advocacy roles at the Writers Guild and at PASC. We have seen people come in going, this relationship is going slightly wonky. How do we resolve this and how do we move forward? And we've seen more often than not that it's actually the friends and family who work together that tend to blow up the worst, because there's a lot of assumptions. There's assumptions that we are both on the same page. There are assumptions that because we like each other now, we will continue to like each other. There is assumptions that our cute quirks right now are cute, but at some point in the future will become annoying. And how do we work with those things? So let's step through some practice to help you start having these conversations and having them very, very early. The moment that spark of creativity appears and you are connected through a piece of work, you should be having these conversations. So before pen hits paper, before idea becomes solidified, you need to start doing some of these things. So we call them the decision-making practice, and you will find your ways of doing it in your individual teams. You'll also find ways of doing it as individuals that work for you. So let's start with the first thing. We've talked about the agreed vision. Shuchi and I role played that. We've given you an example of do the write it on a piece of paper, come together and talk through. In the best practice guide, I've steered everyone wrong. It's actually page 4. Hey, best practice guide. So there is a blueprint. People have done this before you. We've all had hard conversations before you, and we've all lived to tell the tales. So you can do it. We've done it. You can do it too. The first thing is agreed vision for the project. The next is agreed roles and responsibilities of the participants. Who is doing what and how? So Shuchi and I started that conversation when we started talking about our vision for the project. Agreed timelines. I cannot stress enough that deadlines are your biggest monster. They're your biggest scary monster under the bed that you will have as a filmmaker, is meeting a deadline. Whether it's a funding deadline, whether it is a funding application deadline, whether it's delivery to a network, whether it's delivery to a broadcaster, deadlines are the things you have to come to Jesus and find yourself at peace with. So you need to agree to them up front, and you need to find a way of sticking to them as well. The fourth one is really important and maybe should be something that is talked about frequently, not just once, and that is your agreed exit plans. What is going to happen if the project doesn't progress? They're called termination terms in contracting, and I know you're having a contracting session, so they'll go into that in more detail there, but you need to work out what is going to happen to the project. If one person stays on and one person goes, what happens? The fifth one is creating clear, open, and timed communication. When are you speaking each week? Is it via email? Is it by Zoom? Is it by FaceTime? When are you speaking each week? For how long? And do you have an agenda, even if it's just a couple of notes in an email or in a notes before you go into your conversation each week? If you are going into production or you're going into pre-production, you should probably be speaking daily, if not every second day. This one's really important, and it's the code of conduct. It's the kaupapa that you create with your working team, how you want to work together. What does that look like? In this space, we don't swear. In this space, we talk about our agenda items. In this space, we. So you commit as a group to what is your code of conduct together. Your dedicated meeting dates and times. So once you've got your timed meetings, it's like any of your timelines. Once you've set a date or a day each week that you're going to communicate and your time, unless there is an act of God, you should be at that meeting. So unless your limbs fall off or there's a death in the family or some other catastrophic event, you should be at your meetings. And your email response timings. So those are the things that you are going to utilize in your decision-making piece of paper. And this can be one page. You can create this as one page. You can create it as a note in your, I don't know if you do Google Docs, create a Word doc and have this is our code of conduct, which includes our vision, our roles and responsibilities, our timelines, our exit plans, how we're going to and when we're going to talk, our meeting dates and times, and our email response timings. Is that clear for everyone? It's a lot, I know, but once you start having these hard conversations, it actually gets easier to go, oh, someone's missed a meeting. What are we going to do? So that's, you know, you've got some accountability that holds you and your team to meeting your deadlines, to creating that vision, to getting it over the line. So, Shuchi, do you want to add anything more to that?
Just wanted to talk about the trickiest one, which is the termination or the exit conversation. I think it's the hardest one to have, at least personally, and I'm a conflict avoider in life. So for me, that is the hardest conversation to have, it's like, you know, getting married to someone, but talking about your divorce terms before you get married. It's like, you know, I'm going to take the house and you're going to take this and I'll keep the dog. And you go, Jesus, why do you want to get married? It feels a bit like that why are we having this conversation about a breakup and we're actually so excited about working together. But it's a conversation you have to have once. You know, you may not even remember that conversation and hopefully you wouldn't need it, but not having it is not an option because you are creating something together and it's bound in legalities. It is an asset, it is a property, it is all these things. So it's not just like, you know, it's like if you live with somebody, you have to have a lease agreement if you want some surety of being able to live there. Otherwise, somebody can't just tell you, you know, you need to leave tomorrow and you have no recourse. So it is important to have that conversation. To me, what I found in doing this advocacy work is for many people, when that conversation came up, what was clear is they never understood who owned the project. Mm. They thought I owned it. The other person thought, no, I own it because I brought it to you. And the other person thinks, but I owned it because I contributed so much to it. They said, well, that doesn't matter because I wrote the first paragraph. All kinds of things about ownership got thrown up. And what was very clear is they hadn't really even understood what that ownership meant and what it means when a team finds that they can't work together anymore, or one person doesn't want to work with the other person. So while it sounds really depressing, and you know, I'm an optimist, the glass for me is always half full. I love working with people. I think the sexiest thing about what we do is that we get to work in a team. And a bunch of brains that are smarter than yours makes you smarter. And I love that about what we do. But I do think it is important to have that conversation because it means you understand your role and you understand what it is that you're creating in terms of rights, assignment, IP, all these sort of difficult and nebulous ideas that you need to wrap your head very clearly around before you apply for something. Because once you apply, as I said, it's already too late. You're stitched into each one's perception rather than reality, right? If you apply without a conversation, you're just stitched into each other's perceptions of ownership. And your perceptions, you'll realize, are far from the truth.
I think on that note, Shuchi, it's really important that people gain knowledge about copyright. Copyright is what you deal with when you are making works for screen. So things go from intellectual property ideas up here into a work. So you turn your IP, your intellectual property, into an idea, and it has its own set of copyright. So it's a property. So think about it like a monopoly board. You now have a street. So that is your property. And if you are unsure at all about copyright, you can find assistance through several places in the industry. For screenwriters, you can come to us at the New Zealand Writers Guild. If you're a producer, you can go to SPADA. Sandy will pass you on to an employment lawyer, onto a creative lawyer who will help you with copyright. So there are places in the industry you can go to assist you. Entertainment lawyers are in the industry who can help you with copyright as well. I know that there was a pack sent out to you within this cohort, which was created by SPADA that had some very useful documents around chain of title. And I would say to you, it is your responsibility in the above the line roles, producer, writer, director, it's your responsibility to understand copyright, to understand rights assignments, to understand your rights within a project, who gets what and how, to help you have that conversation around termination, exactly as Shuchi outlined. Don't feel alone in the woods of copyright. There are many places you can turn to for help. So you utilize those things. Don't make assumptions, and don't think you know a little bit about it, but not know enough.
Yeah, thank you, Alice, really, because it does feel daunting. I know that, when you're starting out. Also, lawyers are really expensive, and you're starting out, you're barely making, you're kind of wondering whether you can afford your latte this week or not, because production is sapping everything. And then suddenly lawyers are, at $250 an hour or $500 an hour or $6,000 an hour. Jesus, you go, how am I going to see anybody? So Alice is dead right. You use the resources that you have that are available free. And I'm sure you can always go back to Thomas and ask, what NZOA can do to help you with legal advice, because it's very difficult in starting off years on small projects to have that kind of discretionary money.
I think it also highlights that you as beginners, some of you aren't so beginners, but for you new people, that you really need to research what your role entails. So when you are committing to a project and timelines and vision, that you really understand, like if I'm talking to Shuchi, she's the writer, her role would be to write to a deadline, to a standard, to the vision, to the idea. So those are Shuchi's responsibilities. She has to put the words on the paper in a format that we can use, in a timeline, to a delivery schedule that works for us for our funding application. My role as a producer in this would be to ensure that my chain of title documents are accurate, that meet our funding forms are accurate, to ensure that the team is well knitted together, to ensure that there is a document in our shared drive that says this is how we're going to work. So the producer is almost like the spine of the roles, holding everything together, and the writer is the heart that's pumping life into the project, and then everyone else makes up a piece of that body. So it's really, you really should be ensuring that you know what your role entails when you start working with other people, so that when you commit to it, you know you can do it. All right, I feel like a role play is coming along here, Shuchi. I feel like one is rumbling in my artistic bowels here. It's coming, it's coming.
It's coming, it's coming. So we thought of what would happen if, so we had our vision, we wrote down on paper, Alice and I, then, she came back and she had a conversation with people, and she decided that she wanted to be a development producer. So she wanted to be involved in the development of the whole project. But for production, she would step aside, as she didn't want to be a producer for production because she'd be too busy directing. But it just means that she has a big role to play in the development of the project and all the decisions we take during development. Right. So, and that worked for me, because that, kind of addressed my fears that on the day I'll be left alone holding this baby, because Alice obviously is going to put all her heart and time into directing, as she should. So this was a good, good kind of clear situation. We've got our roles figured out, and now we are in the thick of the development process, and we meet, the way we've decided to work is we have a story corridor every Monday, and then I write for 3 days, and then every Friday we meet again to review what I've written, and then she can feed into story at that time. She can feed into what she likes and what works, and then things that I have left as question marks, and this is how we've been working. And in the meantime, of course, her directorial hat is on, so she's kind of bringing in certain elements which she feels will be more attractive visually. And this has been going on for a while. And what if I have started to feel that we are not on the same page in terms of the vision for the project, or just creatively it's not feeling right, and I've got something, but you know what? I'm not even told that I've got something in me. Now it's my turn to have those feels, but I've not been able to say anything to Alice. So obviously, Alice doesn't know. But obviously, even when people don't talk, you have a sense that something isn't right. So we thought, what happens in those situations? Those are all the kind of yucky ones that nothing's gone bad and things are bad. You know what I mean? Like nothing's gone really wrong, but things feel a bit, ugh. So do you want
Should
to?
we just go straight into it, eh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, it's Friday again, Shuchi. Welcome. How's it going? How's your week been?
It's been good. You know, we talked about some stuff on Monday, and I don't know, I incorporated some of what you were saying, but some of it just wasn't working. I don't know. Do you want to just read? And then we talk whether, you know.
What do you mean you don't know? I thought we were cool with those notes from Monday and the week before. They're kind of the same tonally, you know, visually.
Yeah, I mean, they are, and I don't know. I just feel, I don't know.
I've not ever heard you this uncertain before. What's changed this week?
I think it's funny in a way that I don't want it to be funny.
Like, what? I don't understand.
I
thought the comedy, the tone of the comedy, we've been going on this, we're like really far down the track on this tone.
I know, but it seems like every time I write something and then you make it more funny, but it's a kind of funny that doesn't feel like it's about this character. I don't know. It just feels like it's funny for being funny.
But I find it funny.
Yeah, I know.
Well, tell me what you mean by, like, is my funny not funny? Is that what you're saying?
No, your funny is funny. I just don't think it comes from the experience of this character. I think the funny comes from outside, and I want the funny to come from the inside, and I just don't know how to make it funny from the outside, because it just feels like it's not the character's truth.
I wish I'd kind of known that a bit sooner, because I was certainly going with a funny, haha, funny bone funny, you know, visual gags, you know, the tripping, the banana skin, all that. I was like, I thought that's where we're going.
I think some of it that is there, and some of it is there because we don't want to make it too serious. But I think there has to be a way we can make it funny and not too serious without it being, you know, I think still we need to go back to character. Maybe we need to take a little bit of a pause, and maybe if that's okay with you, we spend a week just talking about the character and try and find everything funny in this terrible situation that he finds himself in. And maybe then I go back to doing the same, you know, maybe our notes might change a little bit, our feelings about it might change a little bit, but if that's okay with you, because I really didn't have a good time writing this week, and I don't want to be wasting your time either.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. Although my directorial feelings are zinging right now. I completely understand, and actually what you just said made me think about what we talked about in our vision conversation at the very, very beginning about the truth of this character. And I've steered the character away from her truth. I can see that now. It's uncomfortable for me to admit that. And it's uncomfortable to say that, but I actually think you're really right. I wish you had said something to me earlier, but yeah, let's commit to spending some time to factory reset that comedy. And even if it means factory reset some of that story, I'm cool with that. I want to go with the truth. I want to go with our vision that we agreed to at the beginning.
Thank you so much. And you know what, if you're doing that, I know that I've said I'll protect my Sundays, but I will work this Sunday because I know we are strapped for time. Because if you're going to take a step back, it means we still have to make our deadline. So I'm happy to work this Sunday.
I really appreciate that. I think that's super cool. And if you need me, I'll be on call for you as well.
So this is the ideal scenario. This is
And
what you
seen.
want, right? You want somebody to be able to say this and for somebody to say it back, saying, yeah, that's something they hadn't considered, because at least you did agree during that point of shared vision. Now, if you never had a conversation about the shared vision, you could never do a call back to that moment. So it's harder for people to even interrogate their own path if you hadn't got a starting point that was defined together, right? Alice should be able to say, I wish you had mentioned that earlier. I think that was fair of her to say that, because I should have mentioned it instead of spending 3 days being not comfortable with where the comedy was going, you know. But I also appreciated that Alice was able to say that, yes, maybe I've steered away from the truth of the character, so let's just do a reset. And when you do these kinds of resets, you realize there's a lot you can keep. We are scared of resets because we feel we're going to have to throw everything away. So let's just put some band-aids on work and carry on. But sometimes a reset is a psychological reset. It's not a full reset on the page for your characters. You do realize there's a lot that's worth keeping. Some tweaks will resolve it, but we've both psychologically committed to a reset, our reset with each other in terms of what the vision is for the show. And those kinds of moments are really important with collaborating teams. You know, we call them little touchstone moments, little litmus tests to know that things are what we committed they should be. And does that mean that what if someone has a brilliant idea to completely change that original vision? Because Alice and I pitched this, you know, did a soft pitch somewhere, and some very smart person said, you know, you're going down the wrong track. The story isn't this person's story. The story is actually this person's story. And if we are both excited by it, great. If one of us is super excited by it and the other isn't, the person who's excited should try and either convince the other person. But if the other person is not convinced, I think you need to go back to your shared vision. Because what I've noticed in a short burst of time, that people tend to get massively carried away by other people's input. Right? So you keep reinventing your story. You meet somebody in the cafe, they tell you something, you're like, oh my God, that's such a great idea. You come back and tell your partner, I had this great conversation with Roseanne and she told me da 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 da. Maybe we should do this. And very soon your teammates are worried about you just having coffee with anyone, because you're going to come back with, you know, another idea that throws the whole thing in another direction. So it's also about learning to sift through opinions and ideas. But I think this idea of, you know, how do we remain close to our vision, but also open enough to learn and change is the balance, isn't it, Alice?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got some practical tools now to help you in these conversations, which can be difficult. We often call them dispute resolution tools. And sometimes a dispute can feel minor and sometimes it can feel major, but these are some of the core things to keep in mind when you're having those dispute resolution conversations. So the practice is you start at the beginning, you revisit, discuss, and reconfirm your decision-making tools, starting with your agreed vision, your agreed roles and responsibilities, and your agreed timelines and deliverables. So start at the very beginning, go back to the very beginning. If you're finding that everything is getting quite heightened, go back to the beginning. Where's your piece of paper in your shared docs that says, this is how we are going to do the things. This is what we're making and how we're making it. You go back to those things. You have the conversation. If you are so far apart, there are times you may not be able to come back to the middle, and you will at some point need to accept that, and that is okay. So in those conversations where you are oscillating between coming together and going further apart, you need to ensure that when you are having your conversations, you remove the emotion from it. If you feel like your emotions are getting the better of you in these business conversations, because this is the business end of creation for screen, walk away. Express that and walk away. I have the feels, my emotions are too high right now. Can we do this tomorrow? And The other party has to accept that, because you don't want to push an emotional conversation. You'll all end up in a pile and it won't be worth anyone's time. It won't be very good. So remove your emotion from your business making decisions. And if you can't, step away. Maintain your professionalism. So that is about, what did we agree at the beginning? Am I going to honor my commitment to the project? I committed to being the producer. I let that go at some point because I couldn't honor that commitment, and that was cool. Are you doing the same thing? To maintain your professionalism, what are we creating? Have I agreed to create that thing by doing these things, by doing this role through my responsibilities? If I'm not doing that, that is me not being a professional. I'm not being a professional producer. I'm not being a professional writer or a professional director if I don't adhere to the things that I agreed I was going to do. Another one is, don't make assumptions, particularly when you are in an emotional state about conversations around this type of thing, around creation. You can make assumptions that people have their own agenda, and you can start getting into a vortex. Mm. Those assumptions, if you feel like I know what they're saying, I think she thinks, Shuchi just wants. If you start hearing yourself saying those words that you think you know what someone else is thinking, you've entered into assumption land. You need to walk away. Just beep, 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 reverse out of there. Walk away from assumptions. So don't make assumptions about people's motivations or their agendas or why they've said or done something. Go back to your one-pager. How are we going to do things? Your code of conduct is very helpful for you here. And my final point, our final point here, is that seek external expert advice. If you get to a point where you're at the far end of the spectrum of agreement, you're not agreeing, there are experts in this industry that are here to help you. So from a broad level, you have got industry guilds. You've got the Writers Guild, the Directors Guild, the Producers Guild, the Composers Guild, the Technicians Guild. You also have organizations that look after communities within the craft. So you've got Pan Asian Screen Collective, you've got Pacific Island Screen Artists, you've got Na'aho Whakaari, you've got WIFT. So there are organizations out there that are designed to support you. If you can't find a support level in there, go to your funder and say, I'm having an issue, can you point me in a direction? Your funder should be able to say to you, okay, cool, here's a list of entertainment lawyers if it's at that point, or here's a list of mediators, or whatever the list is that your funder may have access to. The guilds will all have access, and those industry orgs will all have access to those things for you as well. So seek out your craft guild or your community guild first, and then go broader from there. We are all here to ensure that work gets made and that people are safe making the work. No one wants to see work get not made because people are having a feels the feel day. We want to see you get your work made. That's honestly why we're in the industry. For me, for Shuchi, for Thomas, for Kelly, for Nina, this seeing work on screen is the reason, the singular reason. You all there are going to make it, and we're here to help you do that. So back to you, Shuchi.
There are people in our industry who might even tell you, because of their personal experiences, don't work with close friends. I've heard this many times, and some people have just said it publicly in other fora that I've been on, and they're like, don't work with your close friends, you lose them. I don't believe that. You know, I've seen that happen. I don't believe that. I think you can work with your close friends. It's about what you put in place, your safety nets, your honesty buttons, and also just simple things. Like if I move away, I would want in my, initial conversation with Alice that for whatever reason we have a dispute and I move away from this project, are you going to direct this project without me? I want to know. And if she says yes, right? If she says yes, as against, nah, if you walk away, then I'm not directing this, then I need to think about that. Under what circumstances will she direct? Will I still get my credit? And I might decide, you know what, that credit is really important for me. I don't want to jeopardize this whole project. I don't want NZOA to feel that we're, a bunch of wussies. So yes, Alice can go ahead with this project, but I should get a credit as the creator of the project and based on story by. So I'll put 2 credits in place, and then I don't mind if Alice is going to get another writer and take this project forward, right? So these are also safety nets that we put in these early documents, that you got your worst case scenario covered, and then you don't have to dwell on that, and you can just work together as, you know, positively as possible to have the best outcome.
All right, I think we've hit the time there, haven't we, Shuchi, for
Yes.
questions? And I see that Nina has popped into the chat box. If you've got any questions, chuck them in there, and Shuchi and I will hopefully be able to help you out. I know that this was a big one. I know that there was a lot to take in, and sometimes you might need to go back and reflect over things. We're going to be sending out the best practice guide again so that you have it. And it does in here have blueprints for how to have conversations. It's got starting points for conversations. There's also elements in here around credits, around copyright, around script assessment and mentoring and things like that. So there's a lot of helpful information here. And we'll also be sending out, I think, Thomas, later today, just a 1-pager with those bullet points of your tools for decision-making and dispute resolution.
Thank you, Alice and Shuchi.